Hey, welcome to Greenlight. My name is Jovanni Santos, and if you haven't subscribed here yet, please do so down below. Today on DVD Film Discussion, we're talking about miniatures and lavalier microphone placement. So this KingKong DVD is a little bit tougher to get. You'll probably be able to find it easier on Amazon. I'll give you a link below so you guys could check that out and see all the other features that are on here, because I'm only going to talk about two little topics that I saw on here that was really amazing. As you can see, comes like it's pretty it's like a little pad and stuff like that, a little pad kind of thing. It's pretty cool, like a production diaries. So it's one of my favorites. This was $1.99 at Amoeba. So if you're in Los Angeles or in San Francisco, because they have a San Francisco store, they have an as-is section. That section has been my golden bucket for a long time, since I first came out here in Los Angeles and went to the Los Angeles Film School. So right across the school they have Amoeba, and they have these as-is sections, and this is $1.99. So I'll probably find it on the internet right now, and it'll probably be a lot more expensive if you check that out. But I'll also put a link to Amoeba as well, because this is where I get most of my DVDs. But before that, I used to buy them at Best Buy when I worked at Best Buy and stuff like that. So I have a bunch of special editions and stuff like that. So now, the first thing we're going to talk about is miniatures.
Well, big day for us. It's day 200 on the miniatures shooting schedule, which is a day about 100 and a bit on the live action. We're a little ahead of them because we've had to shoot a lot of material before the live action started. So we're getting ready to shoot what is the actual first production film rolled on KingKong. Peter pointed this out yesterday, actually, that we were highly honored that we actually get to do this. Peter's a real hands-on filmmaker, always has been. I think he just loves the fact that there's a process involved in filmmaking, and part of that process is shooting miniatures that somehow enhance and extend a live action set. So you have a small built set that's full size, where they actually interact with the bushes and the trees and the vines, and then we're doing everything outside this. In effect, we're creating the entire environment within which these actors perform. So it'll be a combination of matte paintings and miniatures to bring it to life.
The main miniatures are made by Weta Workshop. We then have to transport them over here from Weta Workshop. Obviously they're huge, as you've seen. And a phrase that got coined on Lord of the Rings was bigatures. That doesn't seem to have changed. There's still bigatures, and no, they're not little. They have to be huge because they're meant to be enormous.
Park it over the yellow lines towards the wall. We've got a few sets running at the moment. Normally we have 2 or 3, but presently we have 5.
It's actually more than 5, because this stage is doing 2 shots, so we've got 6 setups.
I'm doing the boat next door in here, a rock wall here, sea wall here.
I think we either need to get roller skates or scooters or skateboards, because we're really just racing back and forth.
Motion control stage K, we're shooting a gorge shot here that has to be out by pretty much today. We shot it yesterday, but it's a reshoot, so we're picking up shots 37 and 40.
We were in this set for a long time, a couple of 100 shots. And of course, it's built in 10th scale, so it's 1/10 of full size, but at that scale, it means the camera's very, very close to everything. So we have to do a lot of precision detailing on plants, on the moving trees in the wind, on the way the rocks look, the way things have fallen down, and so forth.
The greens department have done an amazing job of making these like little miniature ferns.
We've had these things for a year and 2 months. We started in December last year, and they would have been twice that size now if we didn't cram the poor little bastards into a small pot.
They can be on set for anywhere between 1 day and 2 months, and my job is to try and keep them alive in these extreme conditions: intense light, intense heat and intense wind.
See, the trick is that because we have wind in these shots, the trees are blowing around in the wind, we got it. But they're miniature trees, we have to run the camera fast so that we can slow them down enough so that they don't just go bzz, 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 bzz like that.
And to help with that, I'm putting little lead weights on them, which are little fishing sinkers, which we're clamping onto the leaves to give them a bit more weight so they actually move and look believable when we shoot them at 64 frames a second. Whatever's not behaving properly gets the lead shot treatment. So we'll put more wind on it, but now it's got more weight to it.
Because you have to use this for so many shots, it pays to get a very high level of detail, so no matter where you look, you've got the coverage. Live action units will be wrapping here in a month and a half, and we're going to be shooting until October of this year, way down at the very end, because we have this enormous number of shots. We got around, let's say, around 1,400 shots to do still before we finish. I figure that in King Kong, we probably got twice as many shots as we had in all 3 Lord of the Rings films put together.
I think one of the really special things about Peter Jackson as a director is his use of miniatures, and you know, we're all very thankful that he uses so many miniatures.
And I think he's absolutely right when he says also that there's something about the photographed image, be it a live action plate or a location plate or a miniature plate, that somehow plucks a responsive chord in our hearts, and we say, yeah, I believe that.
So there's some cool things with miniatures here that I love, and I'm definitely going to try and emulate. If you check out the little link above here, you'll see it'll just pop up, and then you'll see my setup of the batch filming that I'm doing and editing that I'm doing. I did like 3 parts. Currently right now I'm filming the DVD film discussion episode, so I have a behind the scenes kind of version going on as well in the 3rd part. So all this right now is going on in the 3rd part, so if you want to check that out, you can check that out as well. There'll be links to it at the end of this video, so you can check that out. Or I think it'll just be like DVD, more DVD episodes. So I'll probably just put it over here in the little bloop, and comes down. There's like a bunch of videos and stuff like that. So I could put it all in there. Now with the miniatures, with perspective, lighting, and angles, you can get a realistic look. Now you can get a little green screen like this when you see the live behind the scenes of this episode. You can see right here this little green screen that I use. If you ever been with your mom to a store called Michael's, they always have like little miniature worlds. It's pretty cool. It's like yeah, right now it's almost Christmas. It's November right now, so there's a lot of Christmas stuff, so you need to work with me just a little bit here so you can get the idea of how big the scope of this is. So let's see here. Come on, phone. Interesting. Is that like a sidewalk? That's kind of ugly. Well, in Michael's they have like little miniature everything. So they have they got a gardening bench, and they have street lamps and stuff like that. Things like that. Things you want that you can interact with yourself, with whatever. If you got a spaceship crashing, you got monsters rolling through and they need to knock down a street lamp, but you can't do that for real out there in the real world with your real plate that you shot. Because this is all in layers, so I would just just to break it down in your head, think about 3 layers. So there's the miniatures layer on the green screen. There's the real people that you did on your green screen. I would say get a bigger green screen than this. Maybe something at Joann Fabrics. At Michael's you can go as well. Maybe they have that in there as well. A big like a blanket type sheet that's green that you can use, and then as the other thing is just lighting. So if you can't do like CG effects, that's okay. You can kind of do these things, because I can't do CG effects at all. So I want to try and do some tests, but there are things that have been done before that you see here that's being emulated a lot. So if you look at Peter Jackson and Steven Spielberg and a lot of early George Lucas stuff, especially the early Star Wars behind the scenes of the first one, New Hope, and what I love about King Kong, the special features, and this is just, you know, and this is just this $199 2-disc thing that they had that I think they were selling before, like when the movie came out, I think, or before it came out on DVD or something like that. They have different versions. They have 2-disc. Obviously, they have the 1-disc version, which is just the movie. Then they have the 2-disc version, which is the movie, which I had at one point. It was the movie. It's like black around, and then it had a little photo of King Kong in the middle or something like that. And you could search for that. And that DVD had a little like behind the scenes and stuff like that. So then they did these, right? And it came with some more little like stuff, pictures and things like that. And then they came out with like an extended cut, which has like 3 discs. It does go into a little bit more depth on these things, so you could check that out. Alright, so on the lavalier mics, this was a nice little tidbit because all these videos were online at first before they came on here. So what you're seeing here is basically stuff that was a web series that they were doing to promote the film before the movie was even released.
Hello, welcome to day 115. Today we're going to show you a little bit of the sound department. Several of you have written in wanting to know more about the technicalities of recording sound on set. Jeremy, Matthew, Jody, Don, Stefan, Akash, Ryan, Nick, Nathan, Keith and Mike. It's ironic that this particular production diary is on this day. Today happens to be the day that we're recording a scene involving our Carl Denham sound recordist. Because of course in 1933 they were having to record sound themselves, and they have much the same problems as we still do today.
We're off on a magical journey. A journey into sound.
My title is Production Sound Mixer, and my job is to record sound at the time the film's shot. So like the scene that we're doing today, we've got a whole heap of characters who are all going to be doing lines, which means I've got to put out a number of microphones, and I'll mix all that chat together to record the actors' dialogue. We're doing a master and there's a lot of characters talking, so we need to put out a lot of mics. There'll be boom mics, there'll be plant mics or radio mics on people.
You think this is about sound, it's actually not. You're doing me for drugs.
That's right.
If you find any, you owe me money.
It's pretty amazing how these guys are able to hide microphones in ties and in jackets. The only downside to the radio mic is you need a little battery pack. Sometimes it's wrapped around your ankle like a prisoner on house arrest.
This is worse than house arrest because now there's someone in your house listening to your every move.
You'll never notice.
Day in the life of a sound man. It's tough. It's tough what they have to endure.
We're going to be shooting very soon, thank you, gang.
Getting almost nervous now. It's the first shot of the day, and it's pretty tight in here.
Here we go, shooting, please.
And here we go.
And roll sound.
Sounds rolling.
Speed.
And action.
I'm going to have the ship's engines over all the dialogue. Seagulls, camera noise, wind, God knows what else.
I don't care, Mike. You're the sound operator. Make it work.
That was a bit of a roughie to start with, but we'll sharpen it up as we go.
Here we go, thank you. And roll sound.
Rolling.
Speed. I try and get everything I can on the boom. You know, you try and get a boom in there as much as possible because it's generally a better sounding microphone. So we're 2 takes into it now. We've found some problems.
We've got a construction site next door. The supermarket's building a new car park or something. So it's very apt. We've got a scene about a sound recorder who's complaining about all this noise in the background, and we've actually got loads of noise in the background here.
Here we go, thank you. And roll sound.
Speed.
Why are you always saying speed?
Well, actually, Julia, that's a good question. Why am I always saying speed on set?
Speed? Well, that's a good question. It starts back a long time back. Me and my friends were back in the pub in about 1962. And then my friend...
Also, part of the sound department's job is to silence people on set who really just don't make any sense.
And action.
Mike, you are the shamalama ding dong. Get it right. Fix it. Make it work.
I mean, I'd love to be able to tell you who actually kind of fluffed their lines strictly between you and me. It could have been Jack.
Come on in. Let me introduce you to the peeps, my crew. This is that. I don't care, Mike. You're the sound recordist. Make it work. That's awesome. Awesome, guys.
Another day on set. Well, yeah, it's a good scene. It's a good scene today. I think it'll shape up really well.
It was a long, hard, rugged day. Sometimes you gotta get smelly, you gotta get hot, you gotta push it to the limits in the field of sound. And today I think we took it to the limit.
So if you're doing action scenes and stuff like that, this is going to be a little bit tougher. So you don't want to put it on anything that's going to move. So you might want to put it in like maybe a part of their skin. So some place like that's good. So if they're running with a tie or something like that, you could put it in the tie. You see it in the DVD special features of KingKong here. You see that they placed it in random places like the collar and inside the tie. You could even do it behind the tie. So if you flip around the flap, you can have it there. But that thing flaps around, so you don't want to have that kind of thing going on. So it all depends on where you place it. With that being said, you want to also have other microphones on set as well, so you have different material to work with, so when you're in post it doesn't screw you up. So especially if you miss like a line of dialogue or something, piece of information, something that is tough for me. When I was doing the first feature film, I only had this, and then I had lavalier mics, but I had no experience with it. And a good lavalier mic, it has to have like basically like very good signal from the the microphone receiver to what it's sending it to the other receiver that's connected to the Zoom mic recorder or little mixer or whatever it is that you're using. So between those two, between the boom mic, which you're gonna get the cleanest sound, and then your lavalier mic, you'll be able to mix between both of them and be able to do something with it. Lavalier mics are omnidirectional, so it's like point whatever, and they're going to pick up everything. So it's very easy for it to get really loud when it comes to wherever you're placing it. So you want to put a tape right over it, like right over the microphone part of it, mainly for interviews or outside stuff. But always there's many places you can kind of tuck it away. And when I mean multiple microphones, I don't mean multiple lavalier mics. I mean, you should have all the actors mic'd up with lavalier mics, but you want to have one or two, maybe three. I mean, it depends on how big your production is and what your action scene or dialogue scene consists of. Because if you have a dialogue scene with 4 or more people, I think if everybody has a lavalier mic and maybe you have 2 boom mic operators in there, you want to get a boom mic in there as much as possible. That's going to be the cleanest sound. So whenever you're missing something and it catches it on the lavalier mic and it sounds decent enough, and sounds really good in comparison to the the boom mic, then that's where you want to go with the lavalier mic. But the lavalier mics are to get the dialogue when there are times where like the actor moves around and the boom mic misses it completely, because the boom mic is always hovering overhead. It's constantly moving, and in between that you hear the you know, in the microphone, because the boom mics are really awesome too, like that. They pick up a lot of sound, so you want to be really good in the way you hold the boom mics very steady and have a good grip on them, and stretch it out, and again, have a good grip on them where you're not bouncing around and it's rattling and all this stuff. So everything needs to be tight. So, you know, and that's, you know, similar situations with the lavalier mic, and that's why with the rubbing, and that's why you need tape. So you can get, you can do double-sided tape if you want to do it to attach it there, but you want to have a tape over the microphone, covering the microphone. You understand? When it's placed on the skin. Because when it's placed on the skin, there's always a shirt or something over it, and it's gonna rub, and it's just gonna sound all over the place. So you don't want that, you know, which is why you do the boom mic to, you know, save you in situations such as that when you're doing an action scene. When you're doing a dialogue scene, you know, two people talking, something like this where, you know, it's just an interview type of situation, you know, you're pretty much good at placing it wherever you want to do it. You can put it in their jacket and things like that, but you always want to you know, it's omnidirectional, so you want to point it, you know, at the actor's mouth, always. Depending on the kind of lavalier mic you get, I think there's some that are like radio waves, and they use radio waves, and it's kind of expensive, very strong signal, though. That's the thing. That's what you want out of a lavalier mic setup, is that the receivers have great antennas or something like that. It's you just want to make sure that the signal is strong, and they're as close as possible together, if anything, if they're cheap. That was my issue with mine when it came to Creed. I was testing it out, and I just couldn't get the whole how far I need to be with the mic, and it just bothered me, and the idea of it was so much better than the actual like actually pulling it off, because I wanted to be on one side of the street and have my actor on the other side with the mic, but it just doesn't sound good at all. It didn't work out. So I scratched that idea, and I didn't even go with it because I was afraid, because I'm the type of person that, you know, with my experience in producing and you know, making videos and stuff like that, especially editing, is that I needed, like, you know, I wrote that script, and then I just went in and got it done like a producer, and didn't focus so much on like those details, because it was the first one, and it was just the matter of having it done, you know, not having a product, but having a film that I have made. And because I want to be a director, I need to show that. So, you know, hopefully you guys could do the same and get your film done, you know, with some of these tips that I'm giving you, as well as many filmmakers in our community here on YouTube. Thank you guys for joining us on DVD Film Discussion. I hope you really enjoy the information here on KingKong. I really love this movie a lot. I'm not saying anything about the new one and stuff like that and giving my critique or whatever, but I enjoyed this and the way this was made. I went to theaters watching this 3-hour movie, and there's even like almost a 3-hour, 30-minute or almost 4-hour version in this extended cut. So, you know, check out these versions. I'll have a link to this one as well as this one down below, so you guys can see all the extra features, the ones I didn't cover on here, which I could end up covering at one point later down the line. If there's something I feel like that needs to be covered on a different episode on DVD Film Discussion. So with that being said, thank you guys. Please comment down below if you guys have any questions on lavalier mic placements or about miniatures in perspective. So you know, if you want to talk more about that, I'm down, and we could figure it out. And you know, I love like case studies. These are like little case studies, so we can talk about it and really flesh this out and make this more of a thing that, you know, every filmmaker can do, and it could be normal, and they could expand their minds and really get their dreams up on the screen. So with that being said, have a great day, guys, and I'll be seeing you soon.